Welcome to today's podcast. My name is Mel Robbins. I'm excited to have a special guest here today, Christine Kanin from Pivot Freight Solutions. And we're going to be talking all about that nitty-gritty side of the freight and logistics and how all that works, because I know this is a big area that a lot of people get stuck on. So welcome to the podcast, Christine.
Thanks so much for having me, Mel. I'm really excited.
I'm sure you get a lot of people who are very raw or unsure about what to even do that you start working with.
Absolutely. Look, freight forwarding is very overwhelming. Many people don't even know what a freight forwarder is or what freight forwarding entails. So yeah, I'm looking forward to sharing some tips on your podcast so people can learn and be educated.
Exactly. I think it's exciting. I think it's really one of those things that as you start to build a product business, and clearly with product businesses, freight is a big part of not just the cost of your running a business, but also sometimes headaches. So in terms of like what's going on and how to manage it all and how to understand it. So I think that any insights that you're going to give would be great. Can you just tell me a little bit about like your background and how did you get into this?
Absolutely. So I didn't grow up dreaming of containers and customs paperwork. I pivoted from one industry to another, but I love solving problems and helping people feel confident. After working with small businesses, I thought, why isn't somebody making this more simpler for people? Freight can be quite stressful, as you just mentioned below. And that's when I decided to pivot. 11 years later, here I am. I'm running a freight forwarding company and we help many small to medium-sized businesses import and export products. So starting from an empty shipping container yard, collecting all the empty containers and then repositioning them on a ship, exporting them back to China is where I started. So right at the bottom. And then, we worked in some boutique freight forwarding companies. I did a diploma in international freight forwarding. And one thing led to another. And I own a business now of freight forwarding.
So what are some of the biggest misconceptions that product-based businesses have about freight and logistics and everything involved?
That's a big question. I would say it's not just about the shipping. There are so many moving parts. There's quarantine conditions, import requirements, customs, duties and taxes, timing, insurance. Another thing that is a big misconception is when people think, all right, it's all booked. It's predictable. It's going to arrive on the day that this person said it was going to arrive. Unfortunately, we cannot control the weather. We cannot control strikes or tax situations.
One of my clients has told me that they had a typhoon that was recently impacted everything.
Yes. So there's a lot of moving parts. So big misconception for product-based businesses that I've come across is definitely one that it's predictable. This is the date and this is the time it's going to arrive.
Yeah, actually speaking on that, another one of my clients talks about she lets her clients know when it may be coming, but she doesn't take payments until she actually has it in her warehouse, because for her, she's been in business over 10 years. She knows obviously that things can change quite quickly, never quite know what's going to happen.
Yes, if you can be flexible in that particular area of freight and freight forwarding, then that makes life a little bit sweet and a little bit easier to deal with. Definitely.
Yes. And so can you walk us through what is a typical journey? Like, I know a lot of the clients that I work with, they will have their factory actually organize all their freight forwarding, which can be good. It can be easier and simpler in the very beginning, but that obviously can have a higher price as well. So what would be that journey if I want to look for my own freight forwarding? What do they do?
A typical journey would be that you've ordered your products from your supplier, they make it, and then they let you know it's ready. So once your goods are finished and packed up by your supplier, we come in, we book space, either on a ship or on a plane, depending whether it's going, if you need it here fast, we'll go air freight. If you don't mind a bit slower method, then sea freight. So once the goods are picked up and cleared to leave that country, then it's on its way here, on the ship or on the aircraft. And that's when the invisible stuff kicks in. That's where your freight forwarder is requesting documentation from your supplier, is checking that the documentation meets import requirements. Obviously, some import permits and conditions need to be done prior to the supplier even manufacturing the goods. But a typical journey is once it's on the water or in the air, documentation is submitted to customs clearance. The product will land or arrive here in Australia, and the freight forwarder will organize the release. So it normally goes through a few departments. So we talk about Australian Border Force, so ABF. And within that heading or category comes quarantine. Quarantine look at your conditions to meet their flora and fauna objectives. Is it going to bring any pests in? Do you have a certificate, fumigation certificate? Have you met the import requirements if it was food related? And then on the customs side, they're looking for duties and taxes. Does your invoice match the packing list, number and quantity of items being shipped, the value? Have you paid the right amount to the supplier? Does your bank statements reflect that amount? So there's lots of different invisible processes happening before goods are actually cleared. And once we do get that green light, then, an invoice is sent out for duties and taxes and the freight and the shipping and that sort of thing. And then if it's containerized, if it's in a shipping container, it will, and it's LCL, so less than container load. So there'll be a lot of acronyms I use, so please stop me.
Yeah, I was going to say, we'll go through a few of those in a little bit.
Yes, yeah. So if you're sharing space in a container, that container will most likely go to an unpack depot and get unpacked and then divvied up into the lines that you ordered. And once that process is done, then we can come in, collect it and deliver it to your 3PL, your warehouse or your door. If it's just a full container, it will be loaded off the ship and onto the terminal. And then the terminal has a process of how many days you can collect the container. And so then we arrange a transport, like a truck with a side loader that will pick up that container and again deliver it to your warehouse or 3PL or to door. So that's the product journey from overseas supplier through to the door. Lots of moving parts. It's not just a box on a boat situation.
I think that's what people
that's a
forget
typical
too.
one.
They don't understand what's really happening. And this is why it's so important to work with different people like yourself, because there are so many different regulations, even just understanding, as you said, like some of the acronyms. Like I remember doing, it was a long time ago now, but I did at RMIT, a course I did, all the Incoterms, like what do we even mean? And the way that you have obviously are even ordering your product has an impact, because you're going to either order Ex Works or free on board or CIF, or like there's all these different terms of what you're going to pay, and that's reflected in also whether the shipping is included or insurance is included and everything.
Yes, absolutely. And I'm so glad you brought that up, because when we're chatting or when you asked me to come and chat on your podcast, I was like, you asked the question, like, what would be the first thing that you would want somebody to Google or to understand? And I was like, Incoterms. You must know Incoterms. If you're signing anything or ordering anything and you don't know what Incoterms are, that is very risky. Risky to you, risky to your business. Please Google Incoterms.
One of the other things there, as I always mention to people, is like the HSN code. Like they should know what their codes are, and maybe you could just explain what that means to help people.
Yes. So HS code is your harmonized system code. And what that reflects is the category your goods fall under. So if you have, say, promotional products, it will be under a heading and then a subcategory. And what that does is helps customs brokers identify what your product is, what it's typically made out of, and then what are the duties and taxes applicable for that category, and whether there's any free trade agreements in place. So each HS code will reflect the country it's originating from, like I mentioned, what product category it's under, and then what duties and taxes apply, and if there's any free trade agreements to minimize your duty on
That's
that
right. You want to get that. You want to know. And that is an international
as
well, isn't it? Which obviously is what Incoterm refers to as well. But it's everyone understands it's the same, so that you want to make sure you get that number right.
Absolutely.
If you are importing, exporting to various places as well.
Yes. And you would like that number, that HS code, to be on all your shipping documents. So when you know what that is, make sure that the freight forwarder puts it on the bill of lading. So that's normally the contract of carriage. So a shipping line would see that bill of lading and will see that HS code and can report the correct code to their reporting process, which helps everything tick the green light. Because if something is misaligned and somebody's reported the wrong code or wrong quantity or something like that's what happens. That's what causes border holds or delays in shipping. Documentation, just number one.
Have that right. Check it off. My husband used to be a customs broker as well, actually. So that was
how exciting.
Yeah. No, that's unracked. I would learn a little bit, even more about it then when he was doing that role. So we all know shipping can be fraught with, as you mentioned, troubles and issues. And the whole 5 years ago, COVID just threw everything into chaos. Since then, what has changed, or what do things look like now? What's still impacting shipping today?
It's nothing like it was, but it's nothing like it used to be. It's very hard to forecast now with rates, ocean rates, air rates. Everything is very inconsistent. We generally have peak season and an off-peak season. Off-peak rates would come down quite considerably. There would be less delays. And then peak
When would
season,
that be, or what time frame is it?
peak season is normally from roundabout now, coming up into August to December. And then your off-peak is between January through to July. On the odd occasion, your peak time will also fluctuate between Chinese New Year.
Yes, I was going to say that can have an impact as well, right? Because they're
Yes.
shut down for so long.
For an entire month. Sometimes longer because they do let their warehouse staff go off to see families, and that might take a couple of weeks to travel back home. It can be quite some time for manufacturing. But yes, so from COVID times, look, the rates were extremely high during COVID, so they have definitely come down, but they're not what they used to be prior to COVID. So I think that's the major change and major fluctuation. Then we have some geopolitical issues happening. We still have port congestion, staff shortages, even weather events that we just spoke about earlier, about typhoons and that sort of thing. Those are all still common effects. Yeah, still dealing with that.
And where do you do your freight forwarding? Is it mostly China to Australia? What is your company working with?
Our main trade lanes is China to Australia to New Zealand, New Zealand to Australia. We have some goods going into Papua New Guinea. We have US to Australia trade lane, and in reverse, Australia to US. We have a few things from Europe, Indonesia, Vietnam is another one, Thailand. So a lot of countries. Basically, anywhere our customers are looking for products, we move those products for them.
Yeah, we'll chat in a moment. We'll touch on some other things that you're doing. But yeah, I found your details and find out about you from Lucy from Mink and Me, and because she's using you for products coming out of India. So how do you help customers navigate that unpredictability of freight? Is it being prepared ahead of time, really understanding what supply, I guess helping them stay informed about supply chain issues is obviously going to help as well. But yeah, let me know.
Yes, absolutely. Like you just mentioned, is communication, proactive communication. Even if we don't have things to really forecast, it's still seasonal things that still happen that we can predict and can nurture the customer depending on where they're trading from. So it's going to be peak season. Rates will increase. Don't just ship based on what you paid last time. Always get quotes, always negotiate pricing with suppliers, and just staying ahead of that curve, knowing, okay, it's peak season. My rates are going to fluctuate. Let's chat to a trusted freight forwarder. Let them know what orders you have coming up and let them help you prepare for that availability there is in schedules, as in sailing schedules, air freight, and costing that up for you.
The difference, I know, it obviously depends on your product, but as you said, whether it's LCL or full containers, understanding if you did this, maybe you're almost at that full container. What would it look like if you did that instead?
Absolutely. When customers come to us and they have a packing list, it's very easy to help navigate which route to take. Normally between the 15, I would say maybe around, depending on the rates, but 13 to 15 cubic meters worth of goods is when you start to do a cost comparison between LCL, so sharing a container with other importers, versus hiring your own shipping container. So that's where we would look at the differences and give those options and say, hey, what do you think about this? But then there's other factors to consider too. You might not be able to accept a full container delivery.
Yeah, I know a few people had to change their warehouse or obviously have a different accepting location because they can't unpack a whole container.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, especially when you're starting out, you would love it to be delivered to your house. How much can your garage store or your shed out the back? And then also you have to get permits to allow you, permits from council to allow you to leave a shipping container there on your driveway. And so there's all these other things that the freight forwarder would work with you to risk mitigate and see what's the best option.
Yeah. And at what stage is, obviously it depends on the timing, but maybe we could talk about that too, but air freight versus sea freight.
Air freight, more expensive. If you need it here fast, you definitely go air freight. But sea freight is your go-to with everything. As long as it fits in, if it's about a cubic meter, I would say we would still look at it if it's under a cubic meter and go, hey, have you considered air freight? Because it's going to cost you.
Something like that.
Exactly.
Sea freight, yeah.
Yes, exactly. So like you said, it depends on the product. So with air freight, there's two types, which people might not really understand. There's your commercial air freight, which will be cargo going into the belly of a plane, a passenger plane. And then there's international courier, which is like your FedEx, your UPS, DHL.
Yeah.
And they have their own dedicated planes for cargo. So DHL have a different way of costing up their charges, and so does commercial air freight. So you just need to know the difference between that and then how much you're willing to pay. So we're talking about the difference between air freight, commercial air freight, and international courier. So international courier would go via DHL, FedEx, UPS, which have dedicated cargo carriers to take your products from point A to point B. And then air freight, which is your commercial air freight, they will go into passenger aircrafts and in the belly of that passenger aircraft. Some of them do have dedicated freighters, and generally air freight is a lot cheaper than international courier, but it again depends on the chargeable weight, which is either volumetric. So volumetric is the size, the space your goods take up, or physical weight, which is the kilograms, the amount your physical product weighs. So they will charge you based on whatever is higher.
And then I guess that's the thing. So depends on your product, depends on how much you're ordering, depends on how quickly you want things. There's going to be those factors that are going to contribute to which one you're going to select. And I think that's as well where it can be hard to work out your costings of your cost of goods and your margins, because people don't always know what they're going to do. Having a allocated amount in your cost of goods so that you know what it might be. And then sometimes you're going to win or lose, right? Depends on if you are. Your first delivery might be air freights to get a few hundred, and then you get the bulk of the order coming sea or something like that as well.
Absolutely. Definitely looking at what you need and when. If you are able to split up the order, say now you have a launch or you need samples or things like that, definitely get your air freight costed up. I'm sure we'll talk about it down the track, but like landed costing, that is something that you need to factor in at the moment that you are ordering from the supplier. So just that dollar figure for that product isn't what you're going to actually pay.
Mm-hmm.
You need to factor in everything. So having that landed cost in front of you to go, okay, I've spoken to my freight forwarder. If I order 100 of these, this is what my manufacturer says it will be packaged in, 60 cartons. These are the dimensions. This is the weight. Now, what does that look like landed here if I go sea freight? What does it look like when it lands here if it goes air freight? And then you're able to split it up to meet your budget as well.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great example. And that's it. Like when you are starting to look at manufacturing, you really want to have that consideration that freight is going to, the price is going to change. Your landed price has to include, as you said, the actual cost of the manufacture, and then working out whether that does include any of those other items, whether it's the actual shipping, insurance. But then you've still got your duty. As you would well know, there's always extra charges, like whether it's holding fees, or I'm sure you could talk about what some of them would be, but unexpected things come up.
Absolutely, especially if you haven't done your pre-work. So, if you've imported a specific product that's manufactured out of a particular wood and it needs an import permit, then you're going to experience delays in quarantine, delays in customs. And that will only result in additional charges. If it's a full container, you'll get terminal storage charges or detention fees for having the container longer than it was on. And then if you're shipping in LCL or air freight, same sort of thing, quarantine fees, storage fees, same day delivery fees, because sometimes you only have a certain amount of time once the goods are cleared to collect it. You need to book in a same day pickup, and that can be a higher cost to what you had originally planned if you did the pre-work and made sure that your product was a viable importation. So there is definitely additional fees that can blow your budget out.
Yeah, absolutely. And just touch on the pricing, do you recommend to have one of those that we talked about earlier, that it should be X works, or is that how you work best because you're taking it from the factory, or it could be any of the different types?
A good question. As a Australian-based freight forwarder that works with Australian businesses or Australian importers and exporters, for me, FOB is the main Incoterm that many of us freight forwarders would recommend people choose and work with. That gives you one control. And when I say control, your freight forwarder is able to go, hey, these are the schedules available. And you can choose what schedule you want your goods to be packed on based on the ready date. And then costs. If it's FOB, the freight forwarder is able to provide a quote on everything, including duties and taxes. So you have that upfront cost as well as control and visibility. So definitely I would recommend Works is another one. That's a really good term. The difference between Ex Works and FOB. Ex Works is that the freight forwarder will pick up the goods directly from the factory. FOB is the supplier will deliver the goods to the nearest port.
So it's
Free on board. Yep.
Yeah. It's never free, but anyway, yeah.
No, it's never free. And that's what people need to understand too. Like the supplier can say, hey, we'll ship it to you for free. No worries. Like it's all included. This is your product price. It's very rarely that.
Yeah.
You will be paying for it somewhere. Either that's the USD amount per product that will increase quite significantly, or you'll pay it once it lands here. Somebody will send you an invoice for something.
And I think that's where as well, like the importance of your pricing and your margins, because if you are so tight on your margins, you haven't considered lots of different things, then any little cost is just going to blow out what profit you're going to have left. So really making sure that when you do look at pricing your product, you've really considered all the different aspects so that you've got wiggle room, essentially.
Exactly. I'm just here speaking on the logistics side of things. For somebody to understand that part and then add in the cost of marketing or insurances or exhibiting at trade fairs, all those kinds of things need to be implemented into your business.
Yeah.
And then ultimately the product base that you sell, you need to make sure that will cover your costs in running that business.
Yeah, absolutely. There's just, lots of things to consider in that. So I think, you've just got to make sure you've got wiggle room that's not so tight that you are. And I guess that's another thing too, though. Even if it is a little bit tight at the start, it can improve if you are buying different quantities or different volumes. If streamlining your freight forwarding and all that sort of stuff, it can change. But just having that not too tight at the start is going to make it a lot easier for you to grow and scale.
Absolutely agree. Work with a freight forwarder that can help you with that landed cost, that true landed cost.
Yeah.
In the freight sense. Find out what your true landed cost is for your product, and then from there, you can go from there.
Do everything else.
Absolutely.
And so is there one mistake that you see brands make over and over when it comes to freight?
Yes. We touched on it briefly. When they let their supplier handle the shipping, but without knowing what that actually means.
Yeah, and so that's, because then it'd be good to get 2 quotes at least. So you're going,
absolutely,
including shipping, what does it look like? If they're not, and then you speak to a freight forwarder, what does it look like? Because then that could be, they might be paying 3 times what a freight forwarder would charge you.
Absolutely. Finalizing or clarifying, because there's so many different cultures that we deal with. And one way of doing business in a different country might not mean the same way we do business here. And it doesn't mean that it's right or wrong. It's just understanding what did they mean by this, or what does this quote mean, and what is included and what's excluded. So yes, I definitely have seen a lot of people agree to the terms like DDP, deliver duty paid, or CFR, which is just cost and freight, without realizing that they really don't have any control over their shipping, as well as when it arrives here, who is the actual importer paying those duties and taxes and what it's going to cost. So that's definitely one of the mistakes I see a lot of brands make.
Yeah, absolutely. And so different considerations for small brands who are just doing their first overseas manufacturing versus larger product distributors who are bringing in a lot more product.
So smaller brands need a lot more hand-holding. So I would recommend them deal with a good freight forwarder. And then your larger brands, they're looking for streamlining their efficiencies. So they want a partner or logistics arm that's going to just manage their logistics. Clear communication. So you're looking for a freight forwarder who wants to be proactive and not reactive. So proactive in the sense of shipping lines are going to have XYZ blank sailings coming up. How would you like us to ship your next 4 containers? Would you like us to group them together or separate them? So there's different considerations to think about when you are a larger brand and importing a higher volume versus just starting out. Hey, I remember this.
But what about shipping sustainable or delicate goods? Are there any special considerations as well?
Yes, there is. I've just written a few notes here. If you're dealing with raw materials or handmade items, even fruit products, temperature-sensitive items, these goods will definitely need extra care, as well as proper packaging, in some cases, special certificates or labeling requirements. So there was 2 really amazing, great resources for sustainable and delicate goods that importers or exporters should have a look at. And one was Austrade's Go Global Toolkit. That is amazing.
And yeah.
Yep. I'll send you those links for that. So Austrade's Go Global Toolkit will help you understand business etiquette with that country you are dealing with.
Yeah.
Corruption laws, trade agreements, packaging requirements, documentation, whether they should be 3 copies and all in English or anything like that. Austrade has a great resource to help importers and exporters there. And then the other one, when it comes to raw materials or any product that you are thinking about importing, I would recommend going onto the site called Bicon. So that's BICON. And that's Australian's biosecurity import condition system. So you would type in your product and it will give you a summary of what you may require, whether that may be an import permit or a specific fumigation certificate or any sort of permit for camper vans or trailers. You do need an import vehicle permit. So that section, Bicon, will definitely help you. So as you're researching your product and what's required, especially when it's sustainable products, they might be made out of bamboo or something along that line. So those 2 places would be my go-to.
Yeah. Okay, perfect. I'll share those in the show notes. Thank you so much for that. I think that's going to be very helpful. What I was going to mention before was that, one of my clients that talk about being preemptive and being the larger or the longer you've been around, the more you can streamline this process. One of my clients, so she has a trade show coming up, and what she does is she gets her containers before she gets orders for them, because obviously the rates of the shipping go up dramatically later. She gets her order in early, which could save her a fair bit of money. She can then have different cost of goods based on when she's getting them, but she's got more risk because she's actually ordering it before she gets orders. But she's been around long enough that she's got numbers and idea about what's going to sell as well.
Yeah, that's great insight. It only comes from experience and time within the industry, time within her business, time with her customer base that will give her that insight and that intuition on how much products to order and how much she can keep on hand and then how much she can sell them for.
Exactly. And
that's amazing.
What she can market as well. So knowing that, and it's also in the stock too, in terms of this is what I've got and this is all we've got.
Exactly.
So you get it now. But obviously she has to hold that in a warehouse too. So that's a whole different situation in terms of what it looks like on the other side.
Absolutely. So holding it in her warehouse, how much is that costing her in storage?
Yeah.
What fees does she need to add on because it's been in storage? And then if you have consumables, is that still going to be in date? How much date do I have to play with?
Yeah, lots of variables. Okay, so do you have a good story of when, I'm sure you have spot fires that happen every single day and every single hour. Do you have a particular story that you want to tell us what happened? Something got stuck or drama turned, anything like that?
I'm touching wood because in my business, I haven't had anything crazy happen, okay? And I would like it to stay that way. Look, the scariest thing for us probably that's happened within our business and probably only in recent times is illegal importation. Fraud is a big thing and importers and exporters need to be aware and make sure that they are keeping their information secure because there's a lot of, I think, people out there or organizations that piggyback or your ABN. Let's say. And so they create this fake email address. It almost mimics your business's email address. They use your ABN number and they import illegal substances. And we're none the wiser. We get the documentation. We do the right checks. ABN checks out. Directors check out. We get signatures, all that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, just by going through an X-ray, we get then a seizure notice going, hey, this was an illegal import. And we only get that weeks later after it's arrived. Sometimes we will get a notification that it is on hold and we'll go, oh, this is a bit sus or what's going on here, especially if it's a first-time importer. Yeah, so probably the most scariest is illegal substances coming in, like illegal tobacco, drugs, or maybe things that don't have permits. Yeah, so that's probably one of the scariest things we've dealt with.
Any way to avoid that or any way to know what?
Within our business, we have a few processes that we have to follow, and they will give us the red flags.
Yeah.
But if you are an importer, just don't import it. Stay away from drugs, people, animals, dangerous.
Stay away from
things. Yeah, just
don't encourage that.
Don't risk the biscuit. Just stick to, what you do.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And Corey, you help people, obviously, if they've already got a manufacturer, they've already got this going on, but then you're also doing some other stuff, which is where the conversation we talked about with Lucy comes into it too. So tell me a little bit how you met and what you do in terms of tours or anything else that you're doing, your She Freights side of the business, or sorry, the She Freights component, which is a different business in itself.
Yes. All right. This question probably makes me the most nervous out of all of them because
It's not as black and white, is it?
no, it's not as black and white. And I guess I haven't listened to the recording yet, but I know Lucy and I love her. And I've spent a number of days with her in India. That's where we met. She came on my retreat. But I did hear you guys chatting about burnout. So that is where She Freights had started from. Yeah, obviously I've said I've been in business now 11 years. I'm a freight forwarder. I'm always on. I always had my MacBook tied to my hand. I was just available all the time. And that kind of pace really caught up with me. Absolutely. And there was a number of times where I was like, oh, I've really got to change the cycle. I'm a mum now. I have 2 kids. This isn't healthy. I've got to change. And there was one day I can remember quite vividly. It was pouring down and I was driving myself to the hospital because I was fearful that I was having a heart attack. It later turned out just to be my first panic attack. And yes, and I was just exhausted, mentally exhausted physically. And my body was just telling me, hey, it's time to slow down. A friend was running a retreat in India. And so I booked myself on her retreat. It was the turning point of when I realized I needed to break that cycle. And so while I was there, through the chaos, the color, the culture, everything, I found this beautiful synergy of running a retreat for women who were looking for products. And so while I was there, I went to a trade fair. It's part of logistics, and I was curious. And I just went, I could do this. I could help support women who are looking to connect with suppliers and manufacturers, who are nervous or who might find it a bit daunting just to jump online and order products from Alibaba or some sort of web-based thing. And so I created She Freights to bridge that and give me an outlet because I loved it. I loved the culture. I loved the forts and palaces. And it just gave me a lot of nurturing while I was there, a lot of time to think and breathe, which is very strange for such a crazy country. It is really loud horns and hooting and all that stuff. And I found peace and tranquility. Yeah, it was good. So that's where She Freights was born. It's a mix of business learning, cultural exploration. We kick a few days off going to visit Agra, which is where the Taj Mahal is. We go to Jaipur and Jodhpur. We experience some block printing workshops. And then we head to the fair where there's about 3,000 manufacturers and suppliers all under one roof. There's about 16 different product categories. And that's where our guests can explore manufacturers. They can go and walk around, see what's around, talk to manufacturers while feeling confident that they're asking the right questions and that they're getting the right information, that they can come back and I can help them then with a landed cost. So that's the thought process behind the retreat is, that I'm there, that I'm in person, helping them find out what the landed cost is of their products, what is going to be viable, if they could send it sea freight or air freight. And they have that kind of information there and then at the trade fair. So yeah, it was just building that connection and helping them be aware of what's available.
Yeah, it can be so scary for people. Someone to just think, I want to do this, but I've no idea where to start. I've no idea where to go. No idea what questions to ask. So having that support would be an amazing offer. I think it's a great thing to do for people. And as well, it's really open to anyone in terms of, you might just be first starting out and be like, I want to get into product, or you might have had your own retail store like Lucy for 10 years and you're like, I just want to add something else in that's for me or different or unusual. But I don't know, I don't want to be a whole new manufacturer. There's a whole lot of different people that this could be amazing for.
Absolutely. But absolutely, it's definitely from a logistics lens. So I'll definitely be there supporting them on what questions to ask your supplier, what things to look out for, how shipping works, time frames, and then the landed cost from the logistics side of things. What duties and taxes are you looking for? What certificates of origin do you need? Is there a free trade agreement available? And what does that impact on your duties and taxes? So I'm really excited about combining that with a bit more of the cultural side of things.
Yeah.
slowing down the pace and just being there.
I love that. I think it's a great combination of your background knowledge and your knowledge, but also something different. And I'm sure very rewarding to take people through this process as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely something that lights me up and I get very excited about it. We have a trip coming up in October and I have...
how often do you do them? Yeah.
Yeah, so the trade fair is run biannually and they have been going for, I think this is going to be their 60th or 65th biannual fair. So they have a spring edition, which is early in the year, and then they have their autumn edition, which is now in October. So normally between February and April, they have one, and then around October, November, they have another one.
Yeah.
So I try and coordinate, depending on numbers and who's interested, I try and coordinate 2 trips.
Yeah, love that. I'll definitely put the link for your She Freights as well as your Pivot solutions in the show notes as well.
Thank you. That's her.
So if someone's feeling overwhelmed by freight and shipping, and what would be the first thing you recommend?
Google what is a freight forwarder, connect with an Australian freight forwarder. I would recommend starting there just to have somebody on your side helping you chat. Build that relationship up. Freight forwarding and freight forwarders aren't scary. Find one you trust. Just 15 minutes talking to them might save you thousands, might save you so much stress. Just chat to one of them. A good freight forwarder will give you the time. They will answer the questions and help navigate the resources, like I said, like Austrade or jumping onto Bicon or visiting the Go Global toolkits. Yeah, a good freight forwarder will help you navigate those sort of things. So yeah, definitely, if you're feeling overwhelmed, Google an Australian-based freight forwarder and Incoterms.
Yes,
please.
Incoterms. We're going to get everyone, let's go and know exactly what every single one is. Yeah, the acronyms and Incoterms that everyone should know.
Absolutely. That would be my 2 go-to.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Christine. This has been amazing. Valuable information and, really good insights for someone who's been doing it for so long and has so much experience.
Well, thank you so much for having me. And look, there's so much more to talk about. There's so many intricacies, documentation and customs and quarantine. So I appreciate bearing with me as I try to consolidate all the thoughts and moving parts in my head to try and articulate the right answers to everything.
You are good at having lots of things happening all at once. It's rubbish and running the logistics of it all.
Yes, the logistics, the juggle of it is real. But look, I'm still passionate about it and I love it. And if I can help a person in business, importing and exporting and just learning about landed costs and Incoterms and that sort of thing, that's why I'm here.
Amazing. That's so good. Thank you so much for sharing.
No, thanks so much, Mel. Appreciate it.
All right. Bye.